We have Jeff McCann, strength and conditioning coach here in the Thousand Oaks area. I met him, I want to say like 8 years ago now. And, right away, we, had a great relationship, just super smart guy. He's been working with a lot of the best teams in the area, has worked with and was able to establish a great business as well. And, just wanted to be able to talk shop with him. So thanks for coming on here, Jeff.
Thank you for having me. And I got you fooled. If you think I'm intelligent, I got you fooled then. So
no, you're one of the best. You're one of the best. There's no doubt about it. So yeah, we have a bunch of different things, a bunch of different topics I'm excited to be able to go over. First, let me just say that with the, with Jeff is from a, strength and conditioning perspective. If I'm a athlete right now, I'm in high school, I'm, or maybe even younger, and I want to do what you do, right? I want to be a strength and conditioning coach. I want to be able to, maybe have a business or work with some of the top high schools. I don't know exactly, maybe let us know what schools you're working with right now. But I know there's some of the top schools in the area. What education do you need? What do you recommend for guys that are getting started?
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good question. I mean, I took a very unorthodox route in the sense that I am where I'm at now, and haven't been in the business for 20 years. But my education is actually, my formal education is in social science. So, and coincidentally, some of the strength coaches that I kind of looked up to as I was coming up in my career, Chris Carlisle, strength coach for the Seahawks, Robert Dos Remedios, Coach Dos, two legends in the industry. Those were guys who were history majors and had history degrees, same as me. So, I'm going to tell you that I think that having a very well-rounded background is advantageous for anyone trying to get into this field, because I'll tell you what, I've been in strength and conditioning now for 20 years, both in the high school and at the FBS level. And to me, how you communicate programming and the objectives, learning objectives to the athletes that you're working with is extremely important. And delivery is not necessarily something that you get in exercise science programming, in the formal education. The management of a weight room is a skill that takes a considerable amount of time, in my opinion, to master, especially when you're dealing with large groups. You identified I work with schools. I think that as a personal trainer as well, I have a training business and a consulting business. It's easy working with one or two athletes, but do you have the ability to communicate your points effectively to a group of 60 to 80 to 100? And how can you facilitate the programming necessary and the routine that you need to be able to give all of those athletes what they need in that training session, and be able to run a weight room that is effective in the sense that you don't have people messing around. You don't have people who are using opportunities with any kind of downtime to distract or take away from the group's training. So facilitating programming that engages all 100. And though they may be doing different things at different times, everyone's bought in and everyone's invested. And I feel that, going back to your question on education, having some form of some form of developmental psychology or some form of educational background is advantageous. You bring up business too. I mean, having a business mindset, which can be done in a classroom or can be done through real life experience, is something that I feel if you're trying to commodify and monetize this and make it into a career is extremely important. So whether it be formally or whether it be done from just taking the hard knocks and just getting out there and starting and learning from the individuals that you surround yourself with at a gym or in a training facility, and learning what worked for them. I think that real world knowledge supersedes what you get in a classroom.
I love that. And that's great for people that are maybe in college or even done with college, to give you the idea, like, look, you just because you didn't go to school in a particular, exercise science, biomechanics, kinesiology, you still have the opportunity to, be a strength and conditioning coach with the right education. And I say all the time, I've learned way more outside of college than I ever did in my degree, and being able to, go to the different seminars and, make sure that I'm staying in touch with who's got the best information out there, and where did they get that information from, and how can I apply it? And yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is not really, found in a book. So did you get your CSCS? Is that what you ended up doing? You studied for the CSCS, got that, and then is that how you got your first strength job, or maybe go a little bit more into how did you get your first opportunity?
It's funny how I got my first strength job.
Yeah, let's hear it. I'm interested. I have no idea about these stories, guys. We were having a totally different conversation before we hopped on this, and so I just totally came out of left field here to get us started. But I'm definitely interested.
Okay, so let's rewind the tape. The year's 2005 and 2004, excuse me. And I had just been hired to be a social science history teacher and a football coach. And we had a season that I coached for at one of the private schools in the San Fernando Valley, and the coach was fired after that season. Actually, the coach decided to move on. Decided to move on to another school. And the coach that came in to replace him said, "Hey, I've got receivers coach, which I coached wide receivers. I need a strength and conditioning guy. So if you're going to stick on, if you're going to be part of the staff, you're going to be the strength and conditioning coach." So it was almost like, okay, do I want this job? Do I want a job or not? So fortunately for me, I was 2 years removed from college football. So I had a pretty good idea of what to do based on what college football was doing in 2003, which is antiquated by now. We understand that. But I had a foundation, and then I was fortunate enough that my brother was playing football at College of the Canyons up the road, and they had Robert Dos Remedios, who was their strength and conditioning coach, who's a legend. He was the only NSCA strength coach of the year to be from the junior college ranks ever to be even nominated, let alone win it. Oh, wow. And that's going up against, all of the big guns from around the country.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate to be in that environment and be able to kind of shadow and learn informally. And then taking what it is that I had as a foundation, what I was learning, and to what you were saying, what you go out there and learn on your own. I'm a big believer in continuing your education. Just like a muscle, your brain will atrophy if you don't use it. So I went out there and I started to research what the latest and greatest in sports performance training was at that time. Ultimately, I was able to then kind of create my own distinct program, taking all of the building blocks and all of the good things that I was able to take from my own experience, what I was able to take from people who I was learning from currently at that time, and then what I was able to gain from research that I had done to formulate my own program. I then did that for a couple of years and was given an opportunity to take my take strength and conditioning to the FBS level, where I was an assistant strength coach at the University of Idaho. And then I was also I was dating my
SCS or anything here. You were just getting purely off of. Oh wow! So this was all just done off of word of mouth. People were just like, okay, you're the man. We want you on our staff.
And I interviewed. I went up and I interviewed for it, and I was able to get the job. And I decided to. I had always had kind of this, like, in the back of my head, man, it would always be kind of cool to be a college coach. I really would like to do this. And then I got there and I did it. I did it for a year, got my master's degree out of it. And I was also at that time dating my wife now, and I wanted to move back to Southern California. And so I got done with that year, had a phenomenal experience, learned a tremendous amount, got to live that D1 lifestyle, which was really cool from a coaching perspective. And then I came back down to California and really started in the high school ranks. And that's where I've been since, is in the high schools out here, and I've coached at a few of them.
Yeah. And I know that's how we actually met, was at a business event, or I mean, at a seminar, right? Like you were, I think you were either speaking or maybe just in attendance or something.
Yeah, I was speaking at that one. It was at Pierce College, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've been pretty fortunate in my career to have had opportunities to speak at conferences. I was able to speak at a couple of Glazier clinics for football and one for sports performance. So that was fun. And so yeah, I believe that as we develop as coaches, we're constantly having to research what is out there, what is the latest and the greatest, because, you know, let's just speak in the context of sport and football, right? For instance, you know, yeah, you might have wrinkles in the game. You might have, okay, a Tampa 2 defense, or, you know, the RPO, run pass option, or a wrinkle in schematics. But the game stays the same for the most part. What I think is changing rapidly is how we train for it, how we prepare for it, how we prepare our bodies for it. How do we recover? You know, my last college football season, 2002, 2003, we didn't have foam rollers. It was, you know, it was like, we're going to do the bigger, faster, stronger program. We're going to squat 3 days a week. We're going to bench 3 days a week. We're going to clean 3 days a week. And then we're going to 1 rep max at the end of every month.
Yeah.
And
I know the traditional ways of how things work. I mean, I still tell people all the time that, you know, for me, what I think is the funniest is like when I remember being in junior college and you know, where the age isn't you know, probably much different, but I mean, this wasn't too long ago for me, right? It was like, you know, 2011, 2012. And I remember asking our coach, like, Coach, you know, I want to get faster. What do I do? Like, how do I get faster? And he's like, you got to deadlift more. You know, you got to go get in the weight room and do more deadlifts. And so where I feel like it's come from then, you know, to now is been crazy because while I do think that the weight room helps, right? It's not like deadlifts are not a thing, but I think there's a lot more that goes into the assessment of, you know, how we're going to be able to you know, standardize. And then, you know, another quick story here is I actually had a stress fracture in my fibula when I was playing, and the trainer at the time, he did Graston on me on a stress fracture. You know, they're trying to get me back, and they thought it was a muscular thing. And you know, so the point being, right, is we've come a long way, I think, in you know, how they treat athletes and your ability to be able to perform at a higher level. And we'll transition that real quick into, you know, because we talked a little bit about how you want to do the in season versus off season, how you kind of structure all that. And so, you know, where do you think that you've been able to kind of develop? Because I know this has been something that you've probably been thinking about for, you know, the 20 years you've been doing it. How did you develop the, you know, in-season versus off-season program that you do? You know, what are some of the things that you do there? I guess just give a little bit of information, you know, whatever you're comfortable with in that regard.
Well, I think when you say comfortable, I believe that in this industry, the best people out there, and I'm not saying I'm one of them, but I'm just saying people share. You know, this is not I'm territorial over what I do. On the contrary, I've found that the best people in the industry that I've been fortunate to learn from are the ones that I call up randomly, cold call or email, and just say, hey, I'm a strength coach out in California. I'm doing this with this. What do you think of that? Or you run into them at a conference, and I've never had a bad experience really with anyone who said, oh, I don't talk about that to you, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm as much of an open book as I can possibly be.
Love that. So for anybody watching, you can call Jeff at any time, and you know, cold call him at any time.
Yeah.
Hopefully you get a few calls.
Late at night, early morning, Sunday is great. You just light it up.
Call him whenever, and don't worry about it. He'll be okay with it.
Well, you know, it's crazy because, you know, I was one of those strength coaches for so long that was concerned with the 40 time, what the bench press max was, what these metrics that we're conditioned to believe are football are the best for football, or sport just in general. You know, I know that at the Division I level, it's something where the strength coach, it's like a source of pride going up and showing the head coach, hey, look at what Morey did for 4 sets of 5 at, you know, 80% of his 1 rep max. Like I don't subscribe to that belief.
Yeah.
To me, yeah, the bigger, faster, stronger. Yeah, those metrics that are ultimately assessed and like I still use assessments with my guys. I'm the strength coach at Sierra Canyon High School. And so, we'll test 40s, verts, broads, vertical jump, broad jump, pro agility shuttle. We will do 1 rep maxes in bench, squat, and clean. But those are as much for the kids as they are for anything. We are fortunate that we have a lot of really high level kids. So college coaches want to see those numbers.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the number that matters to me is the amount of starts they miss due to injury. To me, durability is more important than their ability. And that's a Bill Belichick quote right there, and if, we look at what the overall purpose of the strength and conditioning program is at a school, well, it's to get the guys in the best position possible to be successful. And the name of the game is to be playing football. I tell the guys that all the time. We're in April, we're in May. Okay, that's great. What matters is what you do from August to December.
Yeah.
And we need to get to a point where, as a program, we are healthy and we're able to get to that point as much of an intact unit as we can possibly be. And in my career, I've never had, it's not, Southern California is different than like other parts of the country. It's not like Texas where you have 180 kids in a football program.
Yeah.
In 2015, I was a part of a squad that went to a CIF title game with like 30 guys on the roster. And of those 30, let's just say 15 played. And it was both ways in special teams. Yeah. So my job as a strength and conditioning coach is to make sure that those guys don't miss games, because we needed every one of those 15 that actually were doing the majority of the work.
I love it. Yeah. And I think that ends up, so when you go into the programming side of it, what ends up being an important way, I guess, really, because it sounds like to me, you're putting a focus on the in-season, right? Like, so what in the in-season training do you do to make sure that you're able to, keep people on the field? Because obviously, I'm in the same situation. I the teams that I work with, even with the initial conversations that I have with the coaches, it's like, it doesn't matter how much faster we get, how much stronger we get, how much bigger we get. If you got a bunch of guys that are hurt, then it's all for nothing, right? So if we sacrifice health, or we sacrifice movement effectiveness or efficiency, or just blow by the effective biomechanics of the body, and don't actually teach, then the ability to actually be able to perform and perform safely, I think completely goes out the window. So I'm very big on being able to talk about what are the movements that cause ACL problems. What are the movements that are going to make it so when you're squatting, you're setting yourself up for potential problems. When do hamstring pulls happen? What are the muscles that are typically underused versus overused? Why when you have a bench press or doing different upper body lifts, like why do you have a pinch type of a feel in the shoulder? What is a impingement? Not obviously I don't go into long lectures about it, but I think it's helpful from an athlete perspective. Like, I wish I would have had a coach that could have given me just a little bit of information. I'll just draw it up on the board. I have a few guys. I did this a few months ago when we got into like January. I just started working with the new team, and Birmingham, and I hadn't really gotten in depth with the guys before. I was working more so with Chaminade, which is where my dad coached, and had another guy go over there. So there was one day where a couple guys were like, my shoulder, I feel some stiffness in my shoulder, blah, blah, blah. And so I wrote up I just drew up a scapula. I'm a terrible artist. I drew up the scapula and I showed them, what is going on. So I was like, so when we start off the day and I have you guys do these shoulder circles and, the shoulder warm up that you guys are supposed to be doing, if you just blow by those shoulder warm up exercises, or you don't do the shoulder warm up exercises at all, then the chances of you having this issue go up astronomically, because, all you're doing is creating stress on this particular part of the shoulder, which over a period of time, like when we're doing the benches and the shoulder presses and things like that, is going to cause overuse. And it's the same thing with some of the supplementals. I don't know how you structure everything, but I usually have like a main lift, and then I have two little supplemental things that they'll do. in between to make it so then, and they coincide with that main lift so we can get a wide variety. Because I don't like guys standing around, right? Then that's when they start talking and they start, there's just things that I think are ineffective overall. I think the more movement we can be getting, I program, I always tell guys, like, I program for a 90-minute workout that you guys are going to try to get done in 75 minutes, right? So you guys got to be moving in order to get through it, and if you do get through it in 60 minutes, then you didn't do it correctly, right? Because it's supposed to be a 90-minute workout. And so just to kind of, quick little tangents there, but yeah, I mean, I think that going into some of the specifics, I think maybe of the in-season things to help people stay durable, could be beneficial for people that are listening.
Oh, absolutely. I think there's a lot of what you said is how I run things. I'm looking at 90 minutes, and we're programming 90 minutes in 75. We're getting it done in 75. And yeah, to me, the weight room is the weight room gives us the ability to foster that cardiovascular base that they're going to ultimately develop and need later on. But we are building that in our off season without being out there on the field doing traditional running. The way we structure our weight room program. Again, go and look at the exercises that are used. Yeah, you'll have a main exercise with accompanying auxiliary exercises that help, reinforce that, whether it be, I'm big into contrast training, as pretty much everybody is. And then some form of mobility or injury prevention technique in that. So that way in that workout, there's never downtime. We're never sitting. We're never at a point where we're not moving in some capacity.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the most bang for your buck. I'm kind of limited in the amount of times that I work with, the current school that I'm working with. So I've got to look at, okay, what can I get in that 90 minutes? What do I need to get in that 90 minutes? And what ultimately, are we going to have to say, all right, well, this is not going to have as much of an emphasis at this time, but then when we switch to another phase of our program, this is going to take over.
Yeah. I like it. And, I don't want to end up bouncing around too much. So, I have kind of one more question with, I guess the strength and conditioning side, then I'd like to get into some like business and growth and things like that. So, because you talked about the management of a weight room, I couldn't agree more. I think that is one of the best things that, has really helped me grow as an individual, right? Because I started doing this, probably about 5 years ago, and, being able to, from a thought perspective, from a growth perspective, from a maturity perspective, it really teaches you a lot when you're working with kids or athletes, and you're in front of, however many guys, 50 guys, 70 guys, 100 guys, and, trying to get all of them to work out with the intensity and, to the standards that I think are set within the program, and within the strength coach themselves, right? Because like for me, I'm big on, like, I don't want to lower my standards. Like I have certain standards of what I want to be and what I want to achieve. And I think that when I walk into a weight room or I'm a part of a different program, I could help build people up to get to those same type of high standards. And so that's what I do. Like and Birmingham's won a couple championships here back to back, and working with these guys now, it's like, this is supposed to be a championship program. So if we're going to get that, we need championship levels of effort here in order to make it so we can grow. And really, for a lot of you guys, the goal, right, the aspirations are to go to the next level. And and how can we prepare you here today within this program to make it so you can get to the next level, and be able to thrive there, right? Like we don't want, at least for me, from a strength and conditioning or a strength coach perspective, I don't want the guy that came from my program to be the guy that the strength coach at the next level is like, oh man, this is just absolute terrible technique. Like we're gonna have to just start this guy from ground zero. I want the guy to step in and already be a guy that's like, okay, this guy's obviously his strength coach knew what he was doing, just because of, how he's able to come into the program. And so how do you manage the weight room, right? How do you get the motivation? What are the things that are important to you that you think has really worked in developing a that
Culture.
culture. Exactly.
I think that term is it's used so often, and in so many ways cliche, but it really is.
Yeah.
You're essentially trying to establish a culture that in your off-season program that will permeate into your football season. If we just want to use football for this, but any sport. The work ethic, the chemistry, the camaraderie, and the attention to detail, the attention to small details that are so critical for success in sport. Well, they're critical for success in a weight room. I believe that to foster that culture, one, it takes a knowledgeable individual, because what you want is you want to promote an atmosphere of learning. You're trying to get, I'll use specifically high school. I'm trying to instill a love of fitness with these young men that ultimately they'll take with them for the rest of their lives. I've had numerous players who are part of my strength programs become strength coaches at the Division I level, at different levels, trainers, and then just people who come to me and say, Coach, I still do your workouts, and I was in your weight room 15 years ago. It's like, oh, wow, that's cool. Well, there's other stuff out there, but hey, I'm flattered. Yeah. The idea is to create an atmosphere where the why is a part of things. It's not just, hey, we do bench because we do it, or we squat because that's what we do. Well, let's talk about why we do those things. Why do we do them in certain capacities? I was just in a conversation the other day at Sierra Canyon with one of my linemen. He was talking about a variation that we do a bench or an incline. And I said, well, here we've got, and I listed off 5 different variations that we do for a horizontal press, otherwise known as an incline that we've got. And wow, okay, well, shoot, my dad and I lift all the time and we just do that. Well, hey, there's more than one way to skin a cat. We're going to hit this in different ways. I think that also communicating from the strength coach's perspective, what's the bigger purpose? If the kids understand that the name of the game is to keep them healthy, and this is what we're going to do to be able to do that. This is the plan. I am fortunate to have some years behind me, of data to suggest the effectiveness of how I do things. But at the same time, as with any coach in a new environment, you're going to have to win them over. And you're going to have to convince them that, hey, this is the way we're going to do it, and this is why we do it, and this is how we do it. And ultimately, when you establish that good foundation, I believe that the management of the weight room also falls in line with that. Because again, anybody can train 1 or 2 people. That's easy. Any trainer can train 2 people and look like really good at it. But I've watched strength and conditioning professionals fall apart in environments with 50 to 60 to 80 people, and they're on their own or with one other person, because they don't understand how the flow of a weight room should go. And part of what I do is in my consulting business is I meet with coaches, and I meet with strength coaches and head football coaches. And I say, okay, well, what does your weight room look like? Okay, well, I've got 1,500 square feet. All right, well, let's talk about what you're going to do with these 1,500 square feet to maximize it. This is how I would lay this out. Because part of, being a strength and conditioning coach is taking ultimately what tools you have and facilitating the best program you have. I was at a high school out here in Ventura County that has had a tremendous amount of success. It is a phenomenal football program, but the weight room was never a part of things. So when I showed up that day and I'm like, hey, I'm at this school, I'm feeling like I'm going to be walking into, the Cadillac of all Cadillac weight rooms. I'm like, wait, they don't even have a pair of 25-pound dumbbells. They have a 60-pound dumbbell. They don't have enough bars, we don't have bumper plates, I'm just like, wait, what's going on here? So I had to get really creative, and that was something that, having had years of experience, if I was just a rookie right out the gate and I showed up to that school, for instance, in that scenario, I probably wouldn't have lasted, because I would have been so frustrated with the lack of equipment and the ability to facilitate the program that I know I can, but I can't do because of space and or equipment. So part of what I do in one of my businesses is my consulting business. I meet with coaches around the country and help them with that.
That's awesome.
Because if you don't have the right flow, if you don't have the right organization, if you don't have the right plan in place for the kids to move, especially when we're talking about large groups, then you're really looking at a disaster in the making, a ticking time bomb.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And that's, I love that, because one of the first places I worked at was Cleveland High School, which is a local school here in LA. And their weight room is, when the first time I went there, I think we only had, I was working at the baseball team. They had, I think, 4 or 5 benches, 0 racks, 4 or 5 benches. They had a bunch of just weight. They had a few random dumbbells. They had what their main thing was is they had a lot of those, like those smaller barbells, and they go from like 15 and then it's 25. You can't put any of them on. They're just like, they grow in size there. And so I ended up going and getting, barbells from Chaminade, where my dad was at, donation, quote unquote, because they had a bunch of leftover ones and brought those over. So we had some bars and some plates, but yeah, we literally, it was just like a fitness center basically. And here I was with, 40 baseball players that are, looking to get stronger. So, having to adapt and I totally even forgot about that. That was just such a funny situation to walk into. But yeah, and being able to be in those types of situations, as coaches that are listening here, and even players, right? Like stepping into a situation that is not comfortable and still figure out a way to get things done, still figure out a way to be able to accomplish the goal. Because, I could have went back and gave all the excuses for why, these guys can't get stronger, or, how I don't have the perfect situation. It sounds like that's what Jeff here is alluding to is, they didn't have all this stuff, but that doesn't mean that the goal changes, right? That doesn't mean that the standards don't change. That doesn't mean that, now there's a reason out, or a reason to, not be able to, show up and have a lot of success for the kids that are there. And so, yeah, I mean, I love that you went into that. I think that it's a great learning opportunity for athletes to be able to understand that.
Can I interject? I think that, I believe that, success in life, there's a lot of different variables that we would say contribute to a successful life, or success in a career or whatnot. In the context of strength and conditioning, I think you need to be able to see the world in gray. It is not a black and white world, and it is not a black and white program. Like you have to be able to look at your day and say, oh, wow, okay. Like you have a plan in place for that day, but the kids had 7 shades of snot beat out of them the day before at football practice. Well, you're not going to be doing power cleans. You're not going to be doing your power day, because they're just not, they can't handle it. Yeah. So, having the ability to see the gray, and in the context of that scenario right there, where, okay, I'm going to train 60 to 80 high level football players. Oh, wait, I don't have anything to do it. Yeah. It meant that I had to see a lot of gray, and I had to say, okay, I'm going to hang my hat on different exercises. I'm going to look at this and design my program a different way, because what I've done in the 8 years prior to is not going to work here.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where, that's why I wanted to get into the motivation side, because I almost feel like that ends up being, more of the important thing than anything else. It's like, how to make it so we could just day after day, have a lot of motivation. And I mean, at first when I went to, Birmingham, I could tell that there wasn't a big culture within, weightlifting, just because of, when I had the whole thing, written out and what they're going to go. There's just a lot of reluctance to it, when first starting. But now, you go through a few months and some of the guys are really starting to make some improvements within their strength gains, technique gains, speed gains, jumping, they start, and even body wise, you start to see some changes. Now you could really, like the flow just gets that much better and gets that much easier. But at the beginning, there was definitely some struggle in being able to get that going. So, for the people that are listening, right? Like if it just starts off and it's not, easy from the beginning, persevere through, push through. It's in some ways it's not supposed to be that way, right? It's supposed to be difficult, and that's what makes the cream rise to the top, right? The champions, the best of what you do, are people that are able to go and take something that looks like it is completely messed up, or again, all the different reasons for why you cannot be successful, and make it so you still are successful. So stay with the kids will eventually adapt. The things will eventually, happen. It's just going to be, how often can you continue to show up and have that motivation, and, continue to push, continue to raise the standard, continue to try to get more out of the guys. I think that ends up making a big difference.
Yeah, and to that point, if this is a program that, if you have coaches out there listening to this that are running into something similar, I think in addition to being creative is also think like a kid. What would a kid want to do? Like, I'm not a big believer in bench pressing, right? But I knew that was a way to win over that group that I took over, that didn't have the great weight room, didn't have the weight room tradition, had a phenomenal football culture on the field, but the weight room was never part of it. And they brought me in to instill that. Well, I had to think like a kid. I had to make the workouts, once I had some equipment, I had to make it conducive to some of the stuff they wanted to do. Like, hey, we're going to do Bulgarian split squats. That's my thing, right? I love that stuff.
Me too.
We're going to do skater jumps. We're going to do Bulgarian split squats, single leg RDLs. We're going to do Nordic curls till the cows come home. But we're going to bench press too. And I'm going to throw curls in. Even though I know curls have no benefit whatsoever. I don't care. I'm 41 years old. I did a curl maybe a decade ago. All right. Yeah. But that said, I had to think like a kid, and I had to throw in things in the program to things that I normally probably wouldn't do. But, hey, if we're doing single leg RDLs and we do a single leg box jump, maybe I throw in a barbell curl in there. I don't know. I'm just saying you got to get creative.
No, I do that too. I used to be big on no curl. We're not doing curls. It's not good for the shoulder, blah, blah, blah. And all you get is people that try to sneak off to the side and do curls instead of the workout that you want to do anyway. And so I just came to the conclusion where it's like, it's not that bad for the shoulder for these kids, as long as I'm just big on, like, we got to do all the different, like I do regular curl, a hammer curl, like turned out with the hands, and then triceps, just so we get all the different parts of the arm, right? And I'm big on, like, we got to do all the things here. I think at the end of the day, it's good for the kids. It's good for them to be able to put on a little bit arm size and get a little bit arm strength. So,
well, again, you're wanting to instill a lifelong love of fitness, and if that's your objective, or partly your objective, well, what are they going to do when they leave your weight room? You got to also keep that in mind. Now, when I know I've got the culture changed, and this is something we can talk about with in-season programming, we only bench press in the football season when we win.
Yeah.
So I've had it something where you've had that complete, like, that their way or the highway, this program sucks, to a complete conversion where on Friday nights we win that game, and in the post-game talk, when everyone's riled up, the kids are going, and we're bench pressing tomorrow, and everyone just goes nuts. And it's like, that's when you've got them, because then they understand, they get it, that we're not here to bench press. We're here to do exercises that are ultimately make us better athletes and make us healthier. But we're going to have some fun on Saturday when we win, and we're going to bench and curl and all that. Now, consequently, if we lose, we're pushing sleds and we're doing all those things that, but that said, it is one of those culture pieces. If you can get the mindset to change, and you walk into an environment, like it sucks, because every time I've ever taken a new job, for the most part, I've always walked in and had to replace somebody, right? Whether they left on their own accord or not, you're walking into an environment that is sometimes hostile to your approach. Hey, we benched 3 days a week with Coach Jones or Coach Smith, and that was our thing, and we loved that. Well, guess what? We're not going to do that. Okay, well, you're going to run into a lot of resistance at that point. So, I feel like there is a way to do this, and in that specific scenario where you're thinking like a kid, you're instilling the things that ultimately they want to do, but you get the bigger picture, and that, hey, once I get these kids hooked, we're going to be able to run the program the way that it needs to be run. But you might have to do things initially that you're not a fan of.
Yeah, and because I want to kind of wrap things up here. But, I think a big thing to be able to go into, at least in my opinion, is, because from a strength coach position or a, personal trainer perspective, whatever you want to call yourself, a trainer, however it ends up being kind of defined. I think one of the biggest things that that people make mistakes on are from a business level, right? You could be very, very understanding of what's going on from a weight room perspective or an exercise programming perspective, or when to do certain types of workouts, but really making it so it's something that could actually make it so you're making money, support a family, do all those things. What are your recommendations with that? What have you had success with? What have you learned over your 20 years that people can take from and be able to utilize it?
I think having a growth mindset is the first thing. Like, I think you have to have a mindset. And again, what I say might be right for some, not for others. I feel like having a growth mindset is important because you have to understand that failure is a part of the learning process, and you're going to make mistakes. The longer you do it, the more people you come into contact with, the more brands you work with, what it may be, you're going to make mistakes. So with that said, not having, not getting discouraged, and understanding that a failure is just an opportunity to learn, and hopefully it's not, financially catastrophic.
Yeah.
So that is something that I feel is first and foremost. You have to have that foundation. When it comes to the training business, it's also what's your shelf life? Like there's so long that you can do this. So are you going to be one of those trainers that, I'm 41 years old, and there's days where my body just aches picking up hundreds, if not thousands of pounds for clients, or helping clients and spotting and demonstrating. So having a mind that is ultimately geared towards how do I reach more people with less physical strain on the body is another thing too. And so online programming, subscription-based programming, trying to get to that point where you're able to use your brain and less your body, your back for your income. And then I believe that it's as much about how you educate yourself moving forward, that having the desire to learn and to not be stuck in your old ways and see what the people that are doing it at the highest levels are doing and saying, oh, okay, I like that, and put your spin on it, whatnot. Okay. I think that those are three things right there. Having that growth mindset, having the goal to get yourself out of just the pure grind on your body, and then ultimately continuing your growth as a coach in regards to exercise science, but also business. What's working for others? What's working for other gyms? What's working for other trainers out there? Do you want to run packages, monthly subscriptions? Trial and error is a big part of this. Try something out, see if if it works, then roll with it, perfect it, develop it. If it doesn't, refine it, change it.
What are some of the mistakes then? Because you're kind of alluding to that a couple of times. What are some of the mistakes that you've made that are some of the biggest mistakes you might have made that made it so you were able to learn a lot, in your career? What to stay away from, right? I love when, reading books or listening to people when they talk about, this is how I'm, don't do this. I made this mistake, right? I think that ends up a lot of times being like, I'm so glad I got this book because it gave me the things not to do, right? Because it's always, all these things of how, you should be doing this and doing that and all, and it's like, I love the concepts, nothing against those books, but at the same time, sometimes it's harder to, make that type of change than it is to like, just if you don't make these mistakes, you're ahead of the game, right? So then it's easier to track yourself against that way, right? At least for me.
Sure.
So what mistakes do people stay away from?
Well, I'm that's a good question. I think that I know that once we conclude this interview, I'll be driving home and I'll be like, oh my God, why didn't I talk about this? How many failures and stuff. But, I know that from early on, I learned not to be a bill collector, like create a system, create an invoicing system that is, so that way you can get obviously the money that you need to get paid. We're here to make money, but in that sense. But, not bugging people, creating, whether it be an invoice system or monthly memberships where you're running a credit card every month, stuff like that. I believe that those are things that, I had to learn the hard way, because I got my start before technology and the iPhone were out there, which now everything's super easy. Before come up with different creative marketing strategies. Now I just take a video of a kid doing something on Instagram and I load it, and it is what it is, right? It's free marketing. I believe that there's a lot of mistakes that can be made in getting into leases and getting into commercial real estate. Are you biting off more than you can chew? Knowing your demographic, knowing your area. Just in the area that I work out of, there are 80 gyms. 80.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Whereas, you go to other parts of the country, like I was just at University of Missouri. I had a client that was training for his pro day there. And I went and worked out at one of the local gyms, and there was like maybe 2 or 3 gyms in the entire town, small little anytime fitnesses. So that said, knowing where you're at, and then finding, I think one of the keys to this is not thinking that you can touch everybody, but instead trying to find niches, trying to find a niche that's ultimately going to be what you're going to dominate, or what you're really going to put your emphasis in. And, it doesn't mean that you can't train athletes and general population. Of course you can, but trying to find niches that ultimately you can then refine and hone. And then that's really, I believe, where you're going to have some success. At least that's what I've done in my past.
I love it. That's great. And then last question, before we conclude this here, education wise, book wise, people, resources.
Sure.
What are some of the best resources? What is some of the best education, or what are some of the best books that you would recommend for people to take a look at, or programs or seminars or
Sure.
I know you've been to a lot of different stuff like that.
Been to a lot. I believe that if you're just getting your start as a strength and conditioning coach, Power Training by Dos Remedios is one that I would recommend. Great book, and it's written for the average guy, or gal to pick up and say, okay, I don't have to have, a degree in exercise science or a background in biomechanics to take this book, the lessons from it, and apply it. It's like a plug and play strength and conditioning manual. So Power Training by Dos Remedios is one I would recommend. Okay. If you're looking at, there's Flourish by Martin Seligman. It's about positive psychology. I believe that that's another book that is a really good resource for coaches to have. Recently, Dan Fleischman, he's a big speaker, put out How to Build Your Brand. I think that is a great resource for personal trainers and coaches who are trying to make this a career, and in doing so, you're building a brand. With the smartphone and with access to social media platforms, you have the ability to facilitate and create this brand that ultimately you can commodify and in different ways, whether it be through obviously gaining more clients. That's the first and foremost. But what about endorsements? I've been endorsed by supplement products, apparel lines, and stuff like that. So being able to find ways to either facilitate new clients, get additional revenue streams in, or just growing as a professional. Those are 3 resources right there. Now, again, I'll be in my car and I'll be like, oh my goodness, there's like 15 books I wish I would have remembered and would have said. But those are 3 right there that hit not only just the coaching perspective or just the actual nitty gritty of training, but one that I think is going to make you a better coach. And then ultimately another resource that can help you with developing your business as a trainer and as a coach, to be able to provide for you and your family.
That's great. And, I'll leave these down in the description down below, but if anybody wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way? I mean, email, we'll probably put on like your Instagram, maybe Twitter, things like that. How's the best way to get in contact with you?
I'm going to say probably that my Instagram, McCann Sports Performance, MCCANN, and then the word sports and performance. Is one of the best ways to get a hold of me. I have McCann Sports Performance at Gmail, which which is my primary email to reach me at. And those would be two great outlets right there to be able to contact me. And I'm pretty good about the DMs, getting back to people. And I get hit up from, people that I'm training across the country, writing programming for and whatnot. And some of them use cell phones, some of them use the direct message as the link to me, or the route to get to me. So I'm on it so I can check that.
Awesome. Appreciate your time, Jeff. Thanks everybody for listening. And we'll go ahead and sign off.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Have a good day.